Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is behind the steel curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's Tuesday night. It's after 9 o'clock this week. It's my fault. I had a meeting tonight. I was running late, hustling in, trying to get in here to spend some time with me. As always, I love spending time with my big brother Rich. Big bro, how you doing tonight?
Hey, BTSC fans, Steeler fans. It's the bros.
We're here.
With the last name Scho.
Yeah.
About to do a show.
What do you know?
What do you know?
Going to eat some hay and make things out of clay? What do you say? Sorry. Like I said, it's my fault we're starting a little bit later tonight. I had a meeting run a little bit late. Big Bro was very patient for me. But you know what? I was really struggling. I didn't know if there was really anything going on around the NFL that we could even possibly mention.
Yeah,
it's just so dead.
Slow day today.
My goodness, it was with the deadline for the franchise tag. I thought at one point, like, should I write an article about that the Steelers didn't use the franchise tag? No real Steelers fan felt that the Steelers were going to use the franchise tag. They had no player they were going to lose that was worthy of the amount of money it would cost to keep them. Players of that caliber for the Steelers, like a TJ Watt, like a Cam Hayward, like a Minkah Fitzpatrick, they're all under contract. So that wasn't really going to be an issue. Some people are like, well, what about Juju? $17-18 million for a wide receiver? I don't see that going on. So that was one thing. So I'm paying attention to the news around the NFL today. And then all of a sudden, everyone that was all on the Aaron Rodgers might be coming to the Steelers hype train. Boy, that was shot down, wasn't it? It's pretty good. Rodgers says that might not be the numbers of the contract. Who cares? He confirmed that he's going back to Green Bay. Then of course it didn't take 10 seconds for that news to come out, and then Steeler fans are, well, is Jordan Love available? So it is. That's what happens when your Hall of Fame quarterback retires, I guess, for the Steelers. But old number 12 didn't get to have the spotlight on him all day, did he, Rich?
No, he did not.
For those of you that think the Steelers should be in the trade market for a quarterback, we learned a little bit today of what that kind of trade market looks like.
And I am so glad we didn't pull a deal off like that.
Yeah, yes. In case you're wondering what the deal was, in case you've been living under, I don't know if you're living under a rock. Maybe you don't even talk.
Hey, no. We're looking at positive.
Us.
They get all their news from BTSC and the Scho Bro Show.
Yes. So this is one that was a little bit crazy, and that was that Russell Wilson was traded away from Seattle. He was traded to the Denver Broncos, along with a 4th-round draft pick this season. So it's Russell Wilson and a 4th-round draft pick for Denver's 1st-round draft pick this year. That's number 9 overall, just so you know. Denver's 2nd-round draft pick, which I think they had more than one, but it was the one that was their original one. It's number 40. Their 1st and 2nd-round draft picks next season. And Drew Lock. And who's the defense? Sheldon Richardson, is that the name of the defensive lineman? Did I get that right?
I don't remember who it was.
And tight end Noah Fant. So it's so funny because people were already listed. Oh, I bet you look at these receivers and tight end with Jerry Jeudy and blah 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 and Noah Fant, and then all of a sudden you find out that Fant was part of the deal to actually get Wilson. So that's crazy.
Yeah, hold on. It was Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and Shelby Harris.
Shelby Harris. Where does Sheldon Richardson come from?
I was wondering what in the world you were talking about.
I don't even know who is that. I knew it was a defensive lineman and a good one, and I know it started with an SH in the first name.
Oh, and you forgot a draft pick.
Did I said the 1st and 2nd this year, 1st and 2nd next year? Oh, and the 4th that they got was in exchange for this year's 4th. That Seattle sent was in exchange for Denver's 5th.
Yep.
Yeah. So they did all that. And people are like, wow, well, yeah, the Steelers weren't going to be in on any of that action.
Nope.
And the thing is, if the Steelers wanted a quarterback that bad, they probably would have been content staying at the number 9 pick, which the Broncos had and gave up, along with all this other stuff. So yeah, that was a lot. And Russell Wilson's only under contract for 2 more seasons. He's for 2022 and 2023. So that's what it kind of takes. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Jimmy G, he's the best one out there now to trade for, or Cousins, or look at what it takes to trade for a quarterback. I don't know that I'd want to give up anything higher than a 3rd round pick for the Steelers this year. What do you think, Rich? For anything?
No. We're like, it just shocked the daylights out of me a couple years ago when we traded a first and got Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Because that's typically just not the Steelers' way of doing things. So, there's nobody out there that I would be willing to give up a whole lot for right now. I just wouldn't do it.
And if they were worth it, do you want to give up that much?
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is, if you're a team that, I guess the Denver Broncos really felt that they're just a quarterback away from being ultra competitive. Because if they feel that way, they went out and got them. Now, that's why some people were suggesting, hey, the Steelers have too many holes to fill this year. Let's try to fill all the holes this year. Then next year, if you're looking at a situation where you can do something like that, which still, that does not sound like the Steelers organization. And Jeff Hartman talks about this a lot, where Art Rooney, he was really, really torn over giving up a 1st-round draft pick for Minka Fitzpatrick, because that's how much the Steelers covet them. Could you imagine them giving up a 1st, a 2nd, and a 1st and 2nd? No. That's just not. Doesn't seem. I know there are fans out there a lot of them would love it. There are fans out there that are probably more into Madden or fantasy football than they are understanding how the Pittsburgh Steelers organization operates. And that's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you have to understand that those aren't the kind of things that they pull. Even when you look back at that Minka Fitzpatrick trade, that was a huge deal that they did that.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave up their 1st, and all the other things, the other picks that went along with it were swaps. So they only lost 1 overall draft pick in that trade, and they got Minka Fitzpatrick. So for people that really think that the Steelers have to address that quarterback position, and they're like, oh, I'll be so disappointed in Mason Rudolph, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I'm going to talk a little bit about Mason Rudolph on Stat Geek this week. It's a question that I was asked about comparing him to someone else. So I'm still diving into some of the numbers, but I know sometimes it's just a feeling. I think these are people that haven't been Steeler fans pre-Ben Roethlisberger. I think people that have been around longer understand that you can't go right from one to the next very easily. And you can still go to Super Bowls with the Neil O'Donnell. But the thing is, people think Joe Burrow is fantastic. He went to the Super Bowl, but he didn't win one. Look at all the good quarterbacks in the NFL that's never made a Super Bowl, or only made it to one and didn't win. Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, both of them today, the big quarterbacks out there, they're the best the league has to offer, other than a couple of the younger guys. They've each won one. Right?
Yep.
I'm right. Wilson's only won one, right?
Correct.
Lost one. I remember that. So it's even, you could get the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL and still not come close to sniffing a Super Bowl. I mean, the Packers haven't made it back to the Super Bowl since they played the Steelers, and they've had Aaron Rodgers that whole time. So just something to remember. If anything, it showed today the cost of what it takes to do that kind of business. Whew. Makes you really happy that the Steelers got Ben Roethlisberger without having to trade up to get him when they did.
Yes.
That's a huge thing. So we've talked about that enough. We're ready to talk defense, free agency. Now,
defense.
Did you happen to catch I'll be honest with you. I can't remember if it was this week's or last week's because I actually listened to both of them today because I missed the last one. Jeffrey Benedict's from the cutting room floor. He talked about the Steelers and their philosophy in free agency. And he really did a good job kind of summing up what we talked about 2 weeks ago. And that is they fill the holes in free agency so they have more freedom in the draft.
Yes.
They couldn't do it last year because of the sucky cap situation. But that's generally what they try to do. I'm going to ask you another question, bro.
Okay.
When was it? I think it was over the weekend. Yeah, because it was based on my Stat Geek podcast. I wrote an article for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And I talked about it on my Stat Geek podcast last week, which is Thursday morning, part of our AM lineup, where you can also hear Let's Ride on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. You could also hear Michael Beck's Live Mike. Then we have the noon lineup where I've already mentioned Jeffrey Benedict's cutting room floor. That's when you get Yins talking about. You're getting your draft fix from Jeremy and Andrew, the YouTube shows, everything. We've got so much to offer. If you're not sure, just go check it out. Even if this isn't your cup of tea, you're going to find something that is. But in this article, I talked about how unbalanced the Steelers spending is right now going into 2022. I don't know if you caught this, but compared to the rest of the NFL right now, the Steelers are dead last in spending on offense and second in defense. It's a 3-to-1 ratio in their spending right now.
Yeah.
So when we talk about defensive free agents, my question to you is, should the Steelers be investing big money in defensive players when it comes around next week?
Depends.
All right, Dave, answer. Explain.
To me, it depends on if they see any value in spending more on the offense. If they do, I expect to see them spend some more on the offense than on the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if the value is not there to spend on the offense, then they will spend on the defense.
Then you just try to crush it with D.
Yes.
Yeah. Something that I talked about on my podcast is I could only go back to 2013. That's all the further over the cap went back based on their positional spending. Every Super Bowl champion from 2013 on, and it could even be further, has spent more money on offense than on defense when it comes to what's allotted from the salary cap. So the Steelers have no chance of doing that because they are already well over 50% of what the salary cap could. They would have to start cutting people like crazy, and they're just not going to do that. So to me, I feel like if the Steelers want to make a splash signing, offense, personally, I'd like it to be offensive line, seems to have the most appeal because they're spending so little on their offense.
Correct.
But sometimes you just have to look at it as who can you get and how much money do you have left?
Right.
So,
and we would have to pay this guy this much money. Do we think he's really worth that much money?
Exactly. So what we did, I'm trying to remember how we did this last week. First thing we did is we looked at, all right, who are the Steelers free agents on offense? And we said about, are they going to bring him out? And we did it by position. You ready to hop into that here real quick to see if there's anyone to bring back?
Let's go to her.
Do you want to start towards the line of scrimmage or furthest away?
I don't care. Just pick and let's move.
Towards the line of scrimmage. Let's go defensive line.
Okay.
The only unrestricted free agent on the defensive line that the Steelers have is Montravius Adams. Technically, they have an exclusive rights with DeMarcus Christmas, who was spent the whole last season injured. They'll probably keep him around. So, but other than that, the big question on the defensive line was Stephon Tuitt. Do you feel we got a little bit of good news last week with Tuitt when it came to the comments by Kevin Colbert during the calm down?
I do, but I'd like to hear some more good news on Stephon Tuitt.
Exactly. It's like, it's good to hear that it's good and not bad, but it's almost one of those, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, Rich, Montravius Adams, you keeping him around?
If the price is right.
Yeah, and I don't think the
I thought
price
I
would be that
thought I
bad.
thought he played pretty. I thought he played pretty well for us.
Yeah,
And if the price is right, I'd consider bringing him back.
and if you're bringing back Tyson Alualu and Stephon Tuitt into the mix for playing time, that just puts him and Wormley and Loudermilk as rotational pieces, and you're going to have other guys. I mean, there's still people that really want a defensive lineman in the first round. They really like Davis out of Georgia or someone like that. But if all these people are back, you've got a lot there. You do, but that's also assuming that you have Alualu and Tuitt, and your defensive line. If they are back, they're still getting old,
Right.
so I could see them up. If they can fill in all the holes in free agency, I could see defensive line as being a high draft pick if you're trying to draft for beyond 2022, like they often try to do. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, so that's draft. So do you think the Steelers are going to go out and sign any external free agents on the defensive line?
No.
I'd be surprised if they did as well. I really would.
Unless they find something out and
I mean,
Tuitt's
other
not
than
coming
the
back, then they
minimum, not really changing anything on the salary cap. If they think they can bring someone to camp, I don't know that they bring in anybody that would be guaranteed to hold a roster spot from free agency. So, okay. So we have that. Let's go ahead and hit the outside linebackers / edge rushers. The Steelers, the free agents that the Steelers have there is one Taco Charlton. I'm trying to see if there was another one here. I think that's it because Tuska technically is still under contract. And then of course the two main players. Are you bringing back Taco?
Yeah, I probably would look to try to bring back Taco on another very team-friendly deal. I like his height. Because when you bring him into the rotation, I like his height because it's so different than our other rushers. So he's a totally different rusher than the other ones. So it kind of changes things a little bit. So.
Yeah. Some people are like, like Evgeny Crosby says, 2 years, $2 million. I'd bring him back for the vet minimum if he would do it, because you pay him money, but it even counts less than that on the salary cap. Just the way that works, that whole veteran thing. So that would be an advantage of doing that, is because you could give him more money and have him count less on the cap. But to me, if you bring Charlton back, other than maybe a later round draft pick or a smaller free agent, do you feel like they're all right at that position?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So if they don't bring back Taco, they're going to have to at least address it. To me, you're going to get at least one undrafted free agent that's an outside linebacker by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you're at least going to get that. So, but any other free agent, you think that's a free agent move other than Taco or something of that level? Yeah,
doubt it.
I agree. Something of either him or someone else about the same level is what I would say. Now we get into some of the fun stuff when we talk about inside linebacker.
Yep.
Okay, inside linebacker. Let's see. Well, they have what's his name? Killebrew listed as a linebacker, but he's not. He's a safety, so we'll hold off on him. Yep. But you have both Robert Spillane and Marcus Allen as restricted free agents. I don't see the Steelers offering them the tender that's going to cost more than like $2.5 million for the year. Either one of them. Do you see that happening?
No, I don't.
But do you see them maybe signing them to see, like last year, Ray was a restricted free agent and they signed him for a better deal. I think it was Ray, or it was, or some other guys like that they didn't offer the tender, but they signed them back anyway. I could see that because right now it's Bush and it's still Schobert. I know a lot of people are ready to kick him to the curb and save the $7+ million, but you got to have other people there in order to do that. So, and then you've got Buddy Johnson in the mix there coming off of IR. But would you still try to sign either Marcus Allen or Robert Spillane, even if they're not tendered?
Not necessarily. Depends on what else I could do.
Yeah. There's some interesting names of former New England Patriots that might want to play for Brian Flores again, perhaps, maybe, that I know some people are interested in. I know the team in the Pacific Northwest that just traded away their quarterback just informed their inside linebacker that he will not be with the team next year, in one Bobby Wagner. There's some interesting names out there floating around. So is that a position that you could see them addressing in free agency?
Yes.
I do too. I think they could.
I
don't know if it'll be a huge splash, but I think, let's just say this. It could be a huge splash, but I wouldn't expect one. Fair?
Fair.
Okay.
I would expect a middle of the road splash.
Yeah. So, and I don't know that they can have Joe Schobert play for the base salary he's supposed to make next year.
I just don't see it.
They could restructure him, but why would you, to make him count less on the cap? But would you really want to push more money into the future? And that one's tricky. To me, I almost felt like Schobert. People thought, oh, they brought Schobert in to play next to Bush. I almost felt like Schobert was brought in case Bush wasn't fully recovered, and Schobert didn't show to be any better than an 80% to 90% Devin Bush.
Right.
I don't really know what that the Steelers were really thinking about having them play the way they did. I don't really know. That I liked the move at the time, but it just didn't. I don't know what their goal was. I really don't. So I don't know what their goal is for next season. I'm kind of torn, because I'll take 30 seconds to say this. We've got to be really, really careful that a lot of fan narratives don't turn into, well, the Steelers are doing this.
Right. So
many fans have saying Schobert's going to be cut. The Steelers have given no indication that that's going to happen. So many,
Now,
yeah.
I again, but I don't blame people for saying it, because you look at what he would cost on the cap, and you're just like, would they really? You're like me. Would they really? But until they do something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I think you're going to see something different at that position. I'm not really sure what and how. It might get to a point where some of these other names go away and Joe Schobert's the best name they have out there, which with Steeler fans are like, but we saw what he can do. I don't know. This is one of those situations where I'm glad the Steelers have more inside information than I do, because that's a tough one.
Right.
So, but to me, the last three are all tough ones, because then we move to cornerback. Anything else you want to say about inside linebacker? Are you ready for corner?
Bring on the corner. Yeah,
and Steel Dog, I see you have a super chat, but I was trying to hold it here for a little bit as we get through some of this stuff. Cornerback, free agents, Joe Hayden, Akello Witherspoon, Arthur Millette. And I think that's it for strictly corners. Are you trying to bring anybody back?
Probably my first one I'm looking to bring back is Spoon.
Mm-hmm.
Would I bring Joe back? Man, it better be a really, really nice.
Not anywhere close to what he made last year, right?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. It'd have to be a really, really, really team-friendly deal.
What was he, like top 5 or top 3 paid cornerbacks in the league last year?
Something like that.
It was up there.
Yep.
So, because I know the Steelers with their team spending last year on cornerback, they were up there pretty good. They were 6th in the NFL in spending on cornerback, and they had that. This is salary cap space, and they had Cam Sutton on a cheaper first deal with void years that they signed him back, and everyone else on rookie deals or minimum deals. So that's how much the Joe Hayden factor came into the salary last year.
Right.
So love me some Joe Hayden. But the one thing the Steelers can't afford to do right now that they sometimes get accused of doing is paying guys more money than what they're worth at the end of their career that has been with the Steelers for a while. So
yeah,
that's the big concern, right?
It sure is.
Yeah.
If you can get him cheap, fine. If not, let him go.
And I have a feeling that somebody else is going to pay him more than what the Steelers are willing to do.
Yep, I have a feeling as well.
Yeah. And if I see him playing really well for someone else, I'm going to be bummed that he still had more left in the tank. But if that's not the case, then that's not the case. So you said Spoon. What about someone like Mollett as he played the nickel and various other things there?
It's always an option to me. Again, I think it would depend on exactly what you're looking to do with outside free agents.
Yeah, but I mean, just last year he was a veteran minimum guy. That's what he came in at. If he wants
to come back at a veteran minimum guy again, then by all means, bring him back.
Absolutely, and say you know what you're doing here. You know how it works. This is what we can do for you. If the Steelers feel like he fits what they want to do, and someone like that, I think they might test something here. Do you think cornerback is one of those positions where they could bring somebody in as a free agent?
Possible.
I think they'll bring in a free agent at corner. The question is, what tier of free agents are they bringing in at corner? You know, would you be shocked if corner is the big position that they spend money on in free agency?
I would not be.
Would you be shocked if they didn't really do much of anything other than a minimum guy?
I would not be shocked at that as well.
Same here. That's how I feel. I feel like they could go big, or they could.
They could go big. And if they go big, then you're not going to see them go much after corner in the draft. But if they don't go big, then look for them to maybe try to get a decent corner.
Yeah. No, remember, the Steelers have one first-round draft pick, and they're like, oh, they should grab a lineman. Oh, they should grab a defensive lineman. Oh, they should grab a corner. Oh, it should be a quarterback. They only got one. So what they're going to do is they're going to address these things, and they're going to try to fill out everything they can and use the draft to upgrade. So anything else you want to say about corner?
Nope. Go on to safety.
Let's go to safety, and then we'll get to Steel Dog's question. Safety. The players that are free agents. You have Terrell Edmonds, Miles Killebrew, and I think that's it, because they only had 4 last year, and they still have Fitzpatrick and Norwood. So both of their quote unquote strong safeties, free agents. Rich, do you think they bring either of those guys back?
Oh, I'd love to see him bring both, mainly because I love Killebrew on special teams. I think you get Terrell Edmonds. He doesn't break the bank. We know what we get with him. I think he works very well with Minka Fitzpatrick. I really would, honestly, I'd try to keep them both.
Yeah. So would I. I like Miles Killebrew come on, the dude blocked 2 punts last year, and he could come in and fill in for you
and can give you spot duty. Yes, sir.
You don't sign him to start.
Right. He is the definition of that backup guy who can play in spots and be a special team leader.
Yeah. I just look back at, I'm trying to check here because I'm holding Steel Dog's question. So I'm looking on my phone at some of the stuff coming up in the live chat, and so many people that want to see Edmonds stay. Just think of all the people that wanted him cut 2 years ago. And we're like, you don't cut a guy on his rookie contract that's a first-round pick that's starting for you. They just said, oh, he's terrible. He needs to be cut. Correct. Well, first of all, the first step is to have him be benched. And he wasn't even benched because he was always better than everyone's options. But he just wasn't the player they expected. He's not a Troy Polamalu, but he's very good at what he does.
Right. And to me, the Steelers made the correct move. They didn't pick up the 5th-year option. That was the right move.
Yeah.
Okay, because he's not worth what that money would be. But he is a very solid NFL safety.
Yeah. and especially when they had to lock him in before last year. And last year
Right.
was just even a better year. So the question is, are they going to sign a free agent safety?
Of theirs, I think they signed their 2 back, and that's all they need.
I would absolutely love that. I would, if there's one player that they sign back, but I don't want to say that yet because that's, that's someone I'd really be leaning towards on the defense. Okay. Is to get him back. Now, are you going to pay him Minka Fitzpatrick money? No.
Oh,
And the problem is, if he wants more money than that, you have to remember the dude did not expect to be a first round draft pick. And the Steelers thought enough about him to take him in the first round. Part of you've got to be thinking, this team values me more than what everyone else said I should have been valued. So the grass might not be greener on the other side for Edmonds. Unless other teams really like, oh man, maybe that's something we should have done. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up Steel Dog's question here so I can finally move on. Steel Dog 88, $5 in the tip jar. Thank you so much. Says, if the Steelers sign a splash player in free agency on defense, who would you want?
Name me some corners, and that's who I'd want.
Well, there's J.C. Jackson from New England. I'm sorry. If the Steelers signed him, you'd be like, that would be amazing.
Yep.
But wait until he signs and you see, are we going to have a Russell Wilson moment? But if you weren't here for the beginning of the show, when we talked about the trade for Russell Wilson, when it was like, holy crap, that was expensive. If J.C. Jackson signs with someone else and you're like, holy cow, no wonder the Steelers couldn't get him.
Right.
If he signs for not very much, I'll be ticked that the Steelers weren't in the running. You know what I mean? Because he didn't get tagged. He didn't get tagged today. Some people thought he'd be tagged. So, but I think he's too much money. But man, if they could pull off something, that would be interesting. We mentioned some stuff at inside linebacker, and to me, if you're going to have an inside linebacker, it would be very Joe Schobert-y, if you know what I mean. Someone that someone that's played well in the past, someone that you hope still is continuing to play well, but someone else might have said, yeah, we're kind of done with you. But maybe you can pull another James Ferrier. Dad talked about that on his new show that he ran on Sunday mornings this week and talked about James Ferrier with that. I would love it. I would love that kind of signing at inside linebacker, wouldn't you?
I would be okay with it.
Yeah. So now this was on defense. So a lot of people were talking offense. We spent a whole lot of time on offense last week, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So you've got guys I know like the former Patriots like Hightower and Van Noy. Then we already mentioned like Bobby Wagner was released. It all depends what these guys are going to be looking at on the open market. There's going to be players that you say, gee, I hope the Steelers can sign them. And then they're not going to sign them all. Between some of the offensive linemen that they're out there, that would be nice. I still think if you're going to send anyone, it's going to be the lineman. Kevin Colbert even alluded to it that, man, they should have done more to bring in a veteran offensive lineman last year. So the fact that he said that this year about last year, he's got to be thinking that for this year. So, but there's not going to be, you're not going to be able to do big name people for it all. And there's going to be players signing with other teams that you're going to be like, oh, dang, that's why the Steelers couldn't get them because they went for that much. So, anything else you want to say overall about the defense?
No, for me, our biggest things in terms of our own guys are good. I'd really like to see us keep the 2 safeties, and Taco.
Yeah.
To me, those are the ones I'm really, really worried about. Adams, but
yeah,
we could maybe even survive without him.
Do you feel like an awful lot of that defense is dependent on Stephon Tuitt?
It is.
I mean, wouldn't it be a tragedy to have a guy that's your third biggest salary cap hit not play for a second straight season?
Oh, It'd be awful.
I mean, and because he has so much dead money based on them adding a void year to his contract last year, they added one or at least one or two. I can't remember how many they added when he restructured. They added 3. I just clicked it. Man, oh man. By adding that just would really make it tough. So I really hope that he comes back and is excited and wants to play for the Steelers. And not only that he comes back, rested and rejuvenated and being at a level that what he was when he last took the field.
Right.
Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. So, man, I still can't get over that. When I look at the salary cap numbers, if you recall me say this, who's the top salary cap hit for the Steelers offense?
Oh, wait a minute. Shoot. I looked this up like last week. I saw this like last week, and now I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
My age is catching up with me.
Yeah. That the player taking up the most of the salary cap space for the offense. And what's funny is it's not much because it's only just over $6 million is Zach Banner.
Oh, yeah.
That's your highest salary cap investment on the offensive side of the ball for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's why I feel like they've got to spend something there. They've got to do something just to show that it's important. Right. Because if not, why would any, you got to start somewhere. So that is what it is. So anything else you want to say here about defensive free agency or anything here in general?
No. Although I feel the defensive free, I said no, and then I was going to talk anyway.
Oh,
so yeah, I'm pulling the Dave.
Yeah.
Although I feel the defensive
free, it's more of a bad to say you're not going to answer and then talk about it for 17 minutes. So sorry.
Although defensive free agency is important, I just think there's so much more we need to do on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah.
We got a couple of important things we do need to address on the defensive side of the football, but overall it's just much less numbers wise.
Yeah. So you're right. And I know a lot of people are saying that because I brought up Zach Banner and they're like, oh, he's going to be gone. He's going to be gone. Don't be so sure. Jeffrey Benedict talked about that. I'm in that same podcast I already referred to that he's saying Kevin Colbert's saying we're looking to see what he can do next year. Now, does it mean he's going to be coming in at that same salary cap number with the contract that he has? Not necessarily. I could see them, offering him another deal that's 2 years. It's going to really knock down that number for this year and then have it as a bigger number for the following year if he can prove it for this year, doing that again. So, but they've done prove it deals with him so many times. Eventually, you're just going to have to stop trying to give him a chance to prove it. So, that'll be interesting. But this was defense tonight. This time next week, we might be talking about the Steelers. Do you think they've signed somebody who wasn't on the team last year by this time next week? Well, they can't officially sign him, but they have him lined up. Do you think the Steelers at least have one move in the first basically day and a half of the legal tampering period?
Yeah, you know what? I think we do.
I think we do too. I think we're going to be talking about a new Pittsburgh Steeler next week.
Yeah,
might only be one. Probably
only one, and I'd put it at 75% chance it's an offensive lineman.
I would. Here's what's interesting. That's what I would like. That's why I'm thinking it's not going to happen. Because
that's why it's 75% because I got to leave 25% out there that it's a big defensive name. So
yeah, I mean, and it very well could be. It could be. They could say we're going all in on the defense. They really could, and say, you know what? If our offense can only score 15 points, that's fine. We'll hold our opponents to 12. Tough to do in the NFL in this day and age, but they still have Trent Jordan Watt, so you got to remember that. So it'll be interesting. You ready to do the final question?
Let's roll.
Okay, the final question. I got to remind everyone of the rules because I don't like putting people in timeout. Don't make me put you in timeout. But I'll put you in timeout.
Timeout for you.
I will put you in timeout if you put your answer in before I say it's time for you to answer in the live chat because I want you to answer undistracted. I will answer undistracted. And then we bring it to you all so we can bring up your answers and everything else. You all know what this question is going to be, because it's basically, some people tried to answer this question last week. It's what we asked last week for the offense. Rich, give me one name of a defensive player from the 2021 Pittsburgh Steelers that they re-sign for 2022 who's not currently under contract.
Oh, for me, that one's easy.
For me, it is as well. And I might let you take that answer and I'll do a different one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take the easy one. I'm taking Terrell Edmonds.
You know what? And that is really what the answer is. That is the answer. But if I had to pick someone else, I'm going to go with Miles Kilbrew.
Yeah.
So that's my other one. So guess what? I don't have to put anyone. Oh, I do. One person. One person barely beat me on Facebook. Come on. So that's really frustrating that people just can't follow the directions. So it's out there. It's in the chat. The answer, the question is there. We will bring them up. What's one player from the Steelers on the defensive side of the ball that they're going to bring back? See, there's another good one with Brian Miswa that says Witherspoon.
Witherspoon. Okay. Yeah, I considered him too.
Yes, I did as well. Okay. Kathy Forage, she says Edmonds. Kriakis, good to see Kree out there. Edmonds. Brad Jewett says Edmonds. I don't think Russ is answering the question. If he is,
nope, he was talking about something else, I think. So
okay. Steel Dog 88 says Killebrew. Okay, because sometimes the cheaper guys are the better bets. Okay, what would be nice is if we're all right.
Yeah,
wouldn't you say? Yeah. Okay. Brian Brown says Adams. Steelers Pittsburgh says Edmonds. So it's funny because I'd say, Edmonds is spelled with a U, but I know autocorrect gets that a lot of times. It gets me all the time. Steeler Chick 46 says Edmonds. George OTJ says Edmonds. No, Andrew. It's got to be someone who played on the Steelers last year. It's fun because he said this third degree Burns count. He means Artie Burns, who I'm sorry. Akilla Weatherspoon was one of the highest graded cornerbacks in the NFL over the last 6 games last season, but he was not as high as a grade as Artie Burns was over the last 6 weeks last year. He actually finished the year really, really strong. Shockingly. Good for him, though. Love his story. George Teston says Killebrew. Tyler W. I was wondering if everyone was going to say it. Tyler W. says Hayden, so he retires as a Steeler. Okay. Sherry, I'm not reading yours because you said 2. Mirna, I'm going to bring this up. You say Tuska. They don't have to. He's already under contract.
Already under contract.
Yep. George, you're trying to squeeze in another one. Clarence Washington says Witherspoon. Okay. Tom Vallejo says Hope Bartavius, the defensive lineman. That's Bartavius Adams. I almost went with him. I almost did. Mike Bongiorno. I screwed that one up. He says Edmonds. Fraser Jerry says Witherspoon. Russ says we're Steeler fans. We don't follow directions well. Okay. We did pretty good this time, believe it or not. Richard Adamson said Witherspoon. Russ then gave me his answer. He's going with Hayden. Okay. BMK, Bully Mob Kennel says Akilla Weatherspoon. Love that. I was going to say icon. What's it called? Avatar? I don't know. Whatever it is. His icon, whatever it is. Looks great. For those of you listening on audio, sorry, it's got a Steelers logo and then a dog that has a tattoo of a Steelers logo. It's pretty cool. A cartoon dog. So I should say that. Andrew Wilbar, he finally comes in and says Edmonds. That's funny, Steel Dog. Jerry Cherry Band, he says Joe Hayden. And if you did not check out Monday's Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman on our audio only, Jerry Cherry was his special guest on Monday. So if you didn't check that out, make sure you go. That was a great show. Some people in here are just being funny. So then Sherry Richards says that she only has to pick one because I wouldn't bring it up because it was 2. She's going to pick Edmonds. Okay, that's a good choice. Okay. Jeff Stip Yes.
Yes.
Double P. Says Witherspoon. Okay. And then Felicia, I'm going to bring it up just because it's funny. Hey, Felicia. She says, I guess we can't get Hilton back then since he didn't play for us last year. He doesn't count in this category. And honestly, that would be tampering because he's under contract. So
Yep.
Larry Monek says Adams. That's Montravius Adams. And so does RR. And David Logan says Edmonds. So... and Todd Faraday is once again here so he doesn't get fined. That's what he says.
Thank you, Todd. I hope you haven't gotten fined.
So this was a lot of fun doing this tonight. I want to talk about actual free agency next week.
I know. That's why I want at least one thing to happen. So, because I want to talk about something we know.
Exactly. And I know a lot of people are really in. Oh, Garrett Slingerland says Killebrew. All right, thanks for bringing that up, Rich.
Yep.
Some people really get into the draft. I know Andrew Wilbar, he's our draft guy. That's what got him with BTSC the first place with his mock drafts. Does a fantastic job with that. I know he's working on his mock draft 2.0. I'm excited for that one. But what I like free agency, not so much that I dive into who's available. I love breaking down who the Steelers get.
Yes.
I don't want to go in and get my hopes up that they're going to get someone and then they don't. I'm like, they're not getting Eric Ebron. They're not getting Derek Watt. They're not getting Stefan Wisniewski. I dismissed all three of them that same offseason. They got all three of them. Got a big props to Bad for calling the Wisniewski one, even though that didn't work out. But I love free agency because I think that's where the Steelers look to fill their needs first. So I see those guys as being an impact this year. And then I love to see free agency to see how they close up holes to then be able to have more freedom in the draft. That's really what I want more than anything is freedom in the draft.
Yep.
So next week, I'm hoping that's what we can talk about. Rich, what do you want to say to close us out here tonight?
Just thank everybody that was here and participating in our live chat tonight. I always love our live chat. We have one of the more active live chats.
Yes, we do.
I love it. I know in looking at our live chat tonight, I can say this. A lot of different people have a lot of different opinions, and that's okay. Just remember one thing. When it's all said and done, no matter who we get or don't get or anything else, we're all still Steeler fans.
Exactly.
I'm still going to be out there every week rooting for the black and gold and wanting the guys that we sign to do well. Because the better they do, the better team the Pittsburgh Steelers will be. So remember that. And really just, keep your eyes and ears glued to BTSC, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And we will stay on top of any news that goes on this week because, today ended up being a pretty big day. Don't be surprised, just in the NFL in general, don't be surprised if there's a couple more days this week that pop up with some pretty big news here and there. So stay tuned. We'll be there to get info out to everybody as quickly as we can. So, and next week, me, the little bro, who's bigger than me, we'll be back, and hopefully we'll be talking about something that's going on from the standpoint of the Steelers. Can't wait.